Okay, welcome everybody. Hello, hope you're well. Good afternoon. Very pleased to welcome you to our, I think, third from last event for the online pontoon symposium. Very pleased to welcome Alison Habens. I'll say a few words of introduction for her in a moment, but before that, for people who don't know, who haven't been to one of these sessions yet, I'll give you a sense of the structure of it. Alison's going to talk for a little bit, deliver her workshop, and then there'll be time for questions to her afterwards. You can either put the questions in the chat box or you can just come in and speak the questions to her. And then that'll take about 45 minutes. So the whole session will be about 45 minutes. So Alison is course leader for undergraduate creative writing at the University of Portsmouth. She also teaches on the MA creative writing and holds a PhD on the subject of divine inspiration in literature. She runs a research project called Inkwell, Life Writing for Wellbeing, and her teaching specialisms include fairy tales and philosophy, epic poetry and historical novels, playwriting and contemporary literary fiction. In publishing, she's best known for her Dream House, a 1990s cult novel based on Alice in Wonderland, and has written other novels, Life Story and Family Outing. And she's also written short stories, articles, poems, and plays that are available on her website. She might give us the link to that as we go along. So I'll just hand over to Alison now, then, if that's all right.
Great. Of course. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Have you ever thought about your life as a great adventure? Was there a year when everything seemed to happen? Or is every week like the temple of doom for you? Does each day feel like you've had to slay a dragon or fallen down a rabbit hole? Or does your life seem totally dull compared to the adventures of Indiana Jones, Alice in Wonderland, Harry, Hermione, any other hero you can name? This is going to be a little adventure now. The heroine's journey will take you through a process of reflection and resolution as you look at the learning experiences in your life so far and figure out how you might like to progress, either personally or professionally, in the future after the time of COVID. So first, check out the hero's journey. It's a way of looking at storytelling so that every plot, every book or film can be told in 12 steps. I'm going to show you those 12 steps on the next slide and then talk you through them with illustrations until we come to a point where you get to experiment with some of the ideas yourself. So you might find that your favorite movie or TV show perfectly fits the pattern of the heroine's journey, the hero's journey. And the list might also help tackle our own journeys in life. Any change we encounter, whether through choice or accident, anytime we learn something new is always an adventure into the unknown. Though it's usually referred to as a hero's journey, you don't have to be a man or a warrior to follow this path. Some people who are publicly called heroes are uncomfortable with that name, but many people face personal battles that last a lifetime, and some must fight to get through a single day. So in a way, a better definition of the words hero or heroine is simply human. And look at Indiana there. He's just a little bit of Lego that never let go. To try your own journey today, first think of a time that you had to change, adapt to new circumstances, learn a new skill, whether this was a minor adjustment in your daily routine or a major life overhaul. This time last year, wouldn't have believed it possible to give a lecture remotely. Now, in most feature films and many books, plays, and TV shows, we go through the hero's journey once. At the start, there's a problem to solve, something wrong with the world that needs putting right. Basically, someone is poor, hungry, ugly, lonely, under attack. The heroine has to fix it. These 12 steps describe every quest, whether the plot is horror or romance, tragedy or comedy, and takes us to the happy ending. So just today, you started out in the ordinary world, real life going on as normal, but received an invitation to do something different, to participate in this. You might not have wanted to at first. In the movies, characters are often reluctant to become heroes, but there is always someone to help them, to give a gentle nudge, a firm push, or useful gifts or tips to help along the way. So I'm playing the role of mentor today, and we'll soon have you setting out on a journey of your own. It may feel like you simply put one foot in front of the other to get through these 12 steps, but in real life, it seems that parts of the journey just keep playing out over and over again. So some more of my personal favourite illustrations, but anyone can play along. You begin by picking an adventure that you've had in real life. This might be at school or college, a fun trip or recreational activity. It could be something like an accident or an illness, an ongoing struggle with a physical or mental issue, but just take care if you're sort of working remotely on your own. Perhaps take the sort of safer route on the heroine's journey as we go through it like this today. It might be the adventure of leaving home and going to live or work in a different country or city. It could be the experience of seeking employment or using Zoom for the first time. It may be something that you've made or created, art or craft, music, a garden, cakes. It might be a personal relationship or your professional role that you could look at now as your heroine's journey. So keep the memory in mind as we set off along a little talk through these 12 steps, this prototype narrative, this template for storytelling that I've used for a long time with creative writing students here at the University of Portsmouth, that can be used in a wider context. So step 1 shows the ordinary world, the everyday life of the heroine before the action begins. In this famous film, Dorothy's real home is in Kansas, is bleak, black and white. But when she crosses the threshold into the magical land of Oz, the movie turns technicolored. At the start of Alice in Wonderland, her ordinary world is boring, and she nods off to the sound of her big sister reading an educational book. There aren't even any pictures in that one. Alice points out she doesn't realise yet that a more exciting story is just about to begin. So even aliens have an ordinary world at the start of science fiction films, with life going on as normal, even in outer space. But Pontoon's ordinary world and my workplace looks something a little more like this. So step 2, the heroine gets a call to adventure. For Alice in Wonderland, this is when a white rabbit with waistcoat and pocket watch runs past, someone out of the ordinary inviting her to follow. He heralds the start of the adventure. In Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Harry is keen to receive the call through the letters, the special invitation to Hogwarts school. They're stopped from reaching him by his evil Uncle Vernon. But the heroine often refuses the call when it comes. She's too scared for that adventure, or sleepy or skint to go off into the unknown. Or in the case of Shrek, he's too green, too plump to be the handsome prince. For the next step on the heroine's journey, extra help comes when you meet the mentor. This much needed support may be wise words, or a magic potion, or a companion for the road. Your mentor may be an old man with a white beard, like these characters from The Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and the Odyssey. But the original mentor there, the character teaching Telemachus, Odysseus's son, was actually the goddess Athena in disguise. So your mentor may be younger than you, ageless, or a mouse, not wise at all. Whoever it is, your mum, they just have to encourage you to carry on. So step 5 of the heroine's journey, with the mentor's advice and guidance, she can cross the first threshold, the doorway or portal between the ordinary world and the next scene of the story. Crossing the threshold may also mean taking off in an aeroplane or a spaceship, like in Hollywood movies, falling down rabbit holes or wandering into the woods, like in children's stories, or entering a new classroom, home, office, through an actual door or online, just like in real life. Thanks to books, TV and films, we can peer through portals into magical worlds or have adventures on the internet, even if stuck at home. As you can see, as you start to see how transformation works in all the fairy tales and myths and legends in these images, you can also reflect on the same moments in real life to help understand how to help understand and support yourself as the heroine. Maybe there was some difficult doorway to go through in the memory that you're currently focusing on. But once you're the other side, this happens. So in the Hollywood movie, now we'd go to the montage sequence. In Christopher Vogler's writer's journey, it's called Tests, Allies, Enemies. This is the part of the story where you work out who is your friend and who is your foe. The transformation continues. So sometimes the main character has to get fitter or prettier to continue on their quest for happiness. And these are a couple of my favorites that, again, like the Harry Potter example, they go against the grain. The girl, this is not a bad girl who has to become good in order to get her happy ending. It's the good girl that actually needs to turn bad in order to get her particular prize. And I like the example from the film The Officer and the Gentleman, where the mentor of the kind of naughty white boy who has to has to get good is the black drill sergeant. So even though it looks like there's only one story, by telling it to this template, there are still 1,000 faces or more for every hero or heroine. Now things get scary. The next step of the whether you're thinking about fact or fiction, or whether the story is horror or romance, comedy or fantasy, the heroine now has to approach the innermost cave. This is where you meet the dragon, whatever that might be. Like the door, this might not be an actual cave, but a room or a sports field or a car if you're thinking about your driving test. This scene will show a hero or heroine facing their darkest hour and deepest challenge. The 8th step of the heroine's journey is called the supreme ordeal. And yep, that might be your driving test. In the fairy tales, it was killing a dragon. In modern stories, the dragon might be anxiety or anorexia, a bully or bereavement. It might be a problem that you've encountered in 2020 that still maybe seems insurmountable. Obviously, this is the hardest part of your heroine's journey to think about, but she can't get to the happy ending without passing through this page. And although this step may be frightening or depressing, it's likely that she will achieve something there. A powerful new skill, a longed for treasure, or an important lesson, something useful that will help her get home. The next step of the hero, the heroine's journey, is known as the road back. I've shown these war movie posters just as a reminder that although you can look at your life on that template of 12 steps, or even a day from your life today on that template of 12 steps, every single one of those steps is a story in itself. And much more to it perhaps than just the quick stopover that we're able to get today. But the next step on the heroine's journey is called seizing the sword. For a heroine, that might be anything from a job to a baby, to jewels, to books, romance, to finance. Then they have to take it home. And sometimes that is the hardest part of the journey. In movie land, it's known as the road back. And the central character may be chased, threatened, distracted, or lost, nearly not make it. You can probably think of favourite books or films with the crisis at the 11th hour, the disaster at the last moment. You might have recognised that Indiana Jones myth-theme from the start of the slideshow, where just the road back means being chased by the giant thundering cannonball behind on the path. Step 11 is called resurrection. Somehow the day is saved and the hero, the heroine survives. In fairy tales, it's usually because of a good turn they did earlier, sometimes to somebody in disguise. So you can't be too careful, and you always need to be look out to lend a hand to someone who's going to turn out to be Merlin or your fairy godmother. The final stage of the journey is known as the return with elixir. The return with elixir. And traditionally, this is seen as the sort of the secret of eternal happiness, often conceived of as living forever, everlasting youth. But we live in the real world and can be worried about the future, of course. So I like to think that when you're in the innermost cave and you seize the sword, that's something for yourself. That's something that you wanted, that you needed. And then once you've made your journey back home, once you've struggled back through the second half of the story and lived to tell the tale, the elixir is something that you bring back for the others. For those back home you left behind, who you're returning to, some advice, wisdom, knowledge, just your story, and your pictures to share. So as I go on with we're coming to towards the end of the talk, and I'm now going to show you some of the things that you can do yourself, picking up on these ideas and putting this theory of the hero or the heroine's journey into practice. Whatever sort of writer you are, whether you're looking to write a film or a novel, or whether you're looking to write a page in your diary, or just torn off the back of an envelope that's going to just help you reach some sort of resolution, some sort of satisfying, happy ending. But first we do this. So when you cross the first threshold, you're describing ordinary life before the particular story began. What did you love or loathe about it? And then think about how you knew that that world was about to change. Was there a warning or an announcement? Was it expected or a sudden shock? In stories, the message may be delivered by a white rabbit or a magical letter, but how did you realise the adventure was about to begin? A phone call or email? So remember where, when, and how you got the message. What were your first reactions? You'll be able to go on to write about how you felt when you realised that this adventure had started. Were you ready for the change or reluctant to make the move? Did you feel too scared or otherwise unprepared to take that new step? What sights, sounds, smells do you recall about the time you crossed a key threshold on your personal storyline? And I think in some ways, having all been locked down for a long time, we've all got increased sensitivity to new sights and sounds and smells, or empathy for memories. It will be easy to stir some of these memories up and reflect on some of the important portals that you've passed through in your life, perhaps with the idea of helping those coming after you to come through as well. So here's another important part of the story. You'll have seen how it's a key aspect of the heroine's journey, a crucial ingredient as she or he gets from the beginning, the happy, the once upon a time, but maybe a sad one, to the happy ever after. So meeting the mentor. Was there someone or something that helped you continue with words of advice or offers of support? Remember, guides don't have to be old men with white beards. Yours could have been a family member, friend or fan, even a book or a memory, a website, someone that you don't know but that has saved your life online, a pet. Animals can talk in fairy tales and myth, and we know that actually they can in person, seems. So what did your mentor do to give you the push you needed to go from the ordinary world to the new adventure? Can you describe the special gifts or spells they gave you to assist you across the threshold and on toward the heart of your story? Who or what would be your ideal mentor if you could meet one now? Okay, I've got one more slide to go on to, one more of these little writing prompt ideas to share with you before the point where you can come back with any questions or any tales of your own to tell to us. So I'll just pause for a moment so that if there's anything that you want to make a note of as you think about this idea of your mentor, then you've got the chance to do so. And then the final part of the heroine's journey, or another key moment that's useful, whether you're looking to write in fact or fiction, is this stage that is called seizing the sword. As you approached your own innermost cave, what were you thinking, feeling, or doing? What aspects of your heroine's personality helped or hindered you here? If there was some kind of dragon, and if it feels safe and helpful to do so, why not try describing coming face to face with that person or problem, tackling that task? Maybe you can even tell about a conversation you had or wish that you could have had. So those creative writers who like to write movies or TV or radio plays, theatre, can see how the kind of work that you do professionally can tally and tie in with the kind of work that you might do personally, the timeline of your own story. So tell how you escaped or survived that difficult time in your storyline, because you did, and you're here to tell of it today. What did you save or learn or take away from that darkest hour? It may not have been glistening jewels. You may not have slain the dragon. And as we know from fairy tales and films, the worst moment can sometimes come at the end when the biggest battle has still to be fought. But the hero or heroine always gets home eventually with something they needed, though perhaps not what they went looking for. What would you say is the sword or the spell you could pass on to another hero or heroine at the start of their journey? So that was the backstory, the 12 steps of the hero or the heroine's journey that we use in creative writing workshops and also in real life. And then the 3 different writing prompts around the idea of crossing the first threshold, meeting the mentor, seizing the sword, that you might find interesting and useful to reflect on, again, whether you're writing something creative or private, personal memoir style work. So I will hand back over to Tom and see if he would like to just help to take any questions, or if anyone would like to share some of their thoughts or ideas. It's more to the point, really, as you heard, and remotely participated in a hero or a heroine's journey. So thank you. That's the end of the talk. Tom, take it away.
Thank you very much, Alison. That was very eloquent, and I think, you know, there's a real sort of power to that whole structure of the heroine's journey, which immediately got me thinking about all sorts of other applications that it could have, and how it's a sort of metaphor for so many different sorts of experiences that people have. But, you know, as you explained very, very clearly, also a very useful resource for whatever kind of writing that you want to be doing, or indeed other kinds of creative pursuits. So so yes, does anyone have any questions or comments, or, as Alison said, any sort of experiences you might want to share relating to this? Or... Well, I've got a question, if that's all right, because I know that you're very interested in sort of using these ideas in a kind of therapeutic way and for well-being. And I just wondered if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about your experiences in that sort of department, when that can be sort of attained by people who do sort of write about, who grapple with sort of that confront them? What sort of, you know, benefits to well-being and self-esteem and empowerment is a word we've heard a lot, sort of.
Okay, I'll tell you, there's a couple of really key tips from the field of what's called narrative therapy, and this is a movement that comes from down under, from Australia and New Zealand, essentially. Narrative therapy and the idea of there being particularly sort of beneficial ways and means of telling your own story in order to then to sort of help you continue with it. And a couple of the most important techniques from that are right here in the material that I've just shown, and the writing exercises, the workshop prompts that I've just given. First is the idea of actually sort of separating yourself from the problem, taking a step back, standing, just kind of moving away slightly from whatever you think, you know, or you have been told or are experiencing as your issue. Okay, let's just say, for example, that my issue that I'm grappling with is jealousy, dreadful, destructive jealousy, and it has totally sort of taken over my life. The narrative therapy technique that I would use here would be to create the character of jealousy aside from, separate and different and other to me. It's kind of what we do in creative writing anyway. So I'm going to describe a character, maybe looks a little like me, but is probably going to have green eyes and be, you know, a sort of embodiment or personification of jealousy. And I would simply kind of step away from that character and have a dialogue with her. And in a sort of longer writing workshop, I could set that up so that the participants would then be able to. So I'd say, you know, who's going to talk first? Am I going to come in and start, you know, kind of attacking, raging at jealousy, or am I not even going to get a chance? Is she going to talk already? But we would have a discourse, we would have a dialogue. You know, what's all this then? You know, what's going on here? How do we deal with it? And then arrive at some sort of conclusion, agreement, resolution, maybe just kind of burn out. So that idea that whatever your problem seems to be, it's not actually you. It's not the same thing as you. You can separate from it, show it as a distinct and different character, and deal with it that way. Okay, I've had nice talks with large bottles of wine in similar sort of workshop sessions. So that's one of the key ideas, and how and why I think it works in these sort of contexts. And the other is, you'll have noticed in how I sort of worked there, emphasizing survival, because at the end of the day, anyone who's here doing this work has experienced the innermost cave, has been to their sort of darkest hour or their worst moment, and walked away from it and come out the other side. So people are always able to talk about, write about, and use their sort of insights as to, you know, how did you survive? What was it about you? What strength, what skills, what aspects of your personality got you home safely? So that's the idea of, you know, the sword and the elixir are really, you know, may just as well be things that you sort of found out about yourself and had, you know, already had at the start of the journey, but just didn't realize it. Anyone, as you know, Tom, who, you know, written many a long written through a long night of the of the soul, novels and monographs, and all sorts of kind of teaching preparations that seem to be almost about to sort of overwhelm you, and then you can look back afterwards and actually pinpoint and pick out what it was, your own sort of inner mentor maybe, that helped you get through that, that just kind of brought all the skills, all the perspiration, but also the magic and the inspiration to the table. Okay.
Excellent.
So
That's some really good examples, Alison. Thank you. And I'm just going to read a comment from Hannah, which you might want to respond to, which I think very much accords with what you've been saying. So she says, the journey structure really made me think of my journey from starting university to graduating, which was really interesting to reflect on, going through a change of living situations, learning new skills and meeting new people and working through stressful projects and social situations. So, art and literature come from life. So it only makes sense that the sort of tropes and the structures that we use in art are going to mean something to people's day-to-day experiences, right? They're going to be a kind of a helpful way of looking at the sort of the journey that you're making with your life. So I think that's what he's offered is a really sort of vivid example of that. So,
yeah, that's a really great example, Hannah. Thank you. Yeah, exactly it.
Okay, good. Are there any other sort of, it's interesting that Louis' talk came just before yours, because he was talking about the comic book and the sorts of the kind of structures and the forms that can be used in the comic book and how that relates to the real world and a kind of wider cultural and social context. So it's not, I think it's good to have these talks back to back. Is that you mentioned, I wonder if there's sort of also, you mentioned the kind of lockdown situation that we're in, and I was interested that you said that might kind of intensify our sort of memories, and the fact that maybe we're not getting kind of stimuli from being able to go out and socialize means that we can sort of focus inward more, and that actually might give us more, I don't know, material to work with as creatives. Just be interested to hear if you have any more thoughts about that, that particular sort of, art or writing in the age of lockdown, and how that impacts on the heroine's journey or something.
I was just aware, or I am very aware now, that having with me the sense of smell, because I haven't sort of smelt many people during the last few months. I'm much more aware if I sort of, and because we don't get very close to, as close to people physically as previously, I've just become really aware of being able to, to sort of smell folk as in a way that was,
the nicest possible way.
So just talking as writers, that's our sort of currency. We deal in the senses, the sights, the sounds, the smells. It's one of the things that we teach our students to help them really kind of bring whether they're writing sort of fact or fiction, to bring that all to life. And so yes, I guess the period of slowing down, if people have been able to, and sort of focusing inward, should be helpful in just enhancing the kind of creative skills of all sorts. It's the journey, the idea of the journey has been, it's been a bit frustrated. Nobody's really, it's been made a bit of a mockery of. No one's really been able to go anywhere. So I guess, again, it really kind of forces us to consider the inner journey and the kind of the cyclical journey. We've gone nearly around a whole sort of cosmic sort of cycle solar cycle, and are still in the same place. But I certainly, and I know lots of friends and colleagues, we've been writing away. So at least our, our writing has been on a journey, even if we haven't physically been able to.
Excellent. Okay. Well, if anyone wants to come in with a question or a comment, if not, then I think that's probably a good place to stop. Thanks so much again, Alison, for
All right, thank you.
joining us and really adding a fascinating extra dimension to the proceedings today. So, and we hopefully we can, we're going to talk later about sort of what Pontoon Mark II might look like and legacies and impacts from it, and it would be great to have you involved again if we go forward. Lots of nice comments coming in as well, thanking you and saying how great it was. So, all right, thanks to everyone else for attending as well and for your comments and nice words.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Mandy. Thank you. Mandy's heard it before.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, everyone. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheerio.